In 2023, there has become a divide in the smartphone market. You can either buy a phone with fast charging or a phone with long battery life. So in this article, we will explain the reasons for that and give you a better understanding of which is better for you. Understanding charging. The way a battery works is it has two poles, a negative and a positive. On the negative end, there is a bunch of electrons, and at the positive, there are fewer. So the way it works is those electrons naturally want to flow from the negative end to the positive end. And while that's happening, they can power devices. And once they all have passed, your battery is dead. And that's where the charging process comes in. Charging uses electricity to move those electrons from the positive to the negative end. Once that happens, your battery is full again. The paradox between battery capacity and fast charging. But there is a problem. For this to happen, there has to be a divider between the positive and the negative side to ensure that electrons don't just go straight from one side of the battery to the other. And the faster those electrons move, the faster your battery charges. The thicker that divider has to be, meaning less capacity. But with ultra-fast charging, you actually have to separate the battery into two separate batteries, which, as you can imagine, wastes even more space, which in turn means less battery life. Because of this, creating a battery with long battery life and fast charging is so tough. Heat deteriorating the battery. But there is another problem. When those electrons move, they generate heat, and the faster they move, the more heat is generated. And heat is terrible for batteries because it changes its physical structure over time, which in turn means the battery holds less capacity. It is estimated that a person who keeps their battery at 30 degrees Celsius will lose 20% of their battery capacity in just 1 year. And a person who keeps their battery at 40 degrees Celsius can lose up to 40% of their battery capacity in 1 year. That's why when you're charging your phone, you shouldn't be using it. It's already going to be warm. Using it will only add battery heat to that. The only exception to this rule is bypass charging, which charges your phone components directly without accessing the battery. Wireless charging. This is also why wireless charging sucks. It uses more energy than wired charging, with that excess energy converting into heat, deteriorating your phone's battery further. This is especially shameful when you realize that wireless charging promotes itself as a way to keep your phone at full capacity 100% of the time. Also, a way to keep the longevity of your battery is to keep it at 50% because that is when it's most stable, because it's when the electrons are evenly distributed between the two ends. Fast charging stability, but one of the most significant caveats of fast charging is that it is not consistent. A 60-watt charger will not be twice as fast as a 30-watt charger, not even close. This is because as the charging progresses, the charging has to slow down. So when companies say their phone can charge at 60 watts, that's the maximum. And most of the time, it will be charging at way less. This is why companies will always quote the first 50% of the time it takes to charge the phone, because the second 50% will take considerably longer. The company's decision. So companies must choose between fast charging and battery life, because the two can't coexist. And the company will usually make its decision based on its target audience. For example, Apple, which makes most of its money from selling subscriptions, wants you to stay on their iPhones as long as possible, so you won't go to the competition and cancel your subscription. Because of this, they make sure their iPhones can last a long time by offering 5 years of software updates, and also by ensuring their phones only charge at 20 watts, but in turn, give you long battery life that can slowly degrade over time, with you still having a full day of charge. On the other hand, Xiaomi, which makes their phone inexpensive, wants you to keep buying their phones year after year. So to incentivize you to buy their phones, they make the phone batteries charging extraordinarily fast. Battery life or charging speed, which is better? Now that we have reviewed all the factors and why fast charging and long battery life cannot coexist when buying a phone. What should you choose? Should you choose the iPhone with the 10-hour battery life, but with the 2-hour charging? Or should you use the Xiaomi with 10-minute rapid charging, but with only 6 hours of usable battery life? Here are a few guidelines to help you make an educated decision. If you have long days at work with no place to charge for extended periods, then long battery life is the best for you. And if you have sockets near you at all times, charging speeds will be best for you. If upgradability is important to you, battery life will offer you more trade in value and device longevity. If you are looking for a small phone, charging speeds are impossible and you should maximize your little space for battery life. And if you cannot decide, then in 2023, 45-watt charging and a 5,000 milliamp hour battery is the middle ground.